My narcissistic mother told my abusive ex about my pregnancy, and my life turned into hell. The pregnancy test sat on the bathroom counter, showing 2 pink lines. And the first person I wanted to tell wasn't my partner sitting in the living room. It was my mother. That should have been my warning sign right there. But you don't recognize red flags when you've been trained your whole life to see them as normal. I picked up my phone, then put it down. Picked it up again. My partner knocked on the door asking if I was okay. And I realized I'd been in there for 20 minutes just staring at a piece of plastic that had just changed my entire life. "I'm pregnant," I said when I finally came out, and he swept me up in this hug that felt like safety and future and everything good. We'd been together for 2 years, living together for 6 months. And this wasn't exactly planned, but it wasn't a disaster either. We were both 28, stable jobs, a decent apartment. We could do this. He was already talking about converting the spare room into a nursery, about telling his parents this weekend, about how excited everyone would be. I waited 3 days to call my mother. I don't know why I waited. Actually, that's a lie. I know exactly why. There was this small voice in my head saying, "Don't," saying, "Enjoy this moment before she makes it about her," saying, "You know how this will go." But she's my mother. You're supposed to tell your mother these things. You're supposed to have that moment where she cries happy tears and talks about becoming a grandmother and offers to help with everything. "You're pregnant?" Her voice on the phone was flat. Not excited, not congratulatory, just flat. "Well, that was fast. We've been together for 2 years," I said. "I meant moving in together and immediately getting pregnant. People will talk. We've been living together for 6 months. And we're adults, so I don't really care if people talk." There was a pause. Then, "Does he know it's his?" I should have hung up right then. I should have said something cutting and ended the call. Instead, I tried to explain that of course he knew. That we were happy. That this was a good thing. She made a non-committal sound and changed the subject to something about her neighbor's tree branches hanging over her fence. The entire conversation lasted maybe 8 minutes. She didn't ask when I was due. Didn't ask how I was feeling, didn't offer to help with anything. When I hung up, my partner found me crying in the bedroom. "What did she say?" he asked. "The usual." I wiped my face. I don't know why I expected different. Here's the thing about having a narcissistic mother. You spend your whole childhood thinking it's normal. You think every kid competes with their parent for attention, that criticism is love, that walking on eggshells is just family dynamics. I didn't realize it wasn't normal until I was 23 and a friend pointed out how my mother had worn a white dress to my college graduation party. Something clicked. I started seeing patterns. The coldness, the need to be central in every situation, the way I always felt anxious and inadequate around her. By the time I met my current partner, I'd been through years of therapy untangling it all. My therapist used words like enmeshment and covert narcissism, and eventually I stopped thinking she was being dramatic. I'd learned to keep my mother at arm's length, to manage my expectations, to protect myself from her worst impulses. But you can't completely cut out your mother, right? She's your mother. You only get one. The terrible relationship, Tyler, had started when I was 24. I was freshly out of college, working my first real job, trying to figure out who I was. He was 29, charming, intense. The first 3 months felt like a fairy tale. Constant attention, elaborate dates, talking about our future together. Looking back, I can see it was love bombing, the textbook start of an abusive relationship. But at the time, after growing up with my mother's coldness, the intensity felt like love. The control started small. Comments about my clothes, asking who I was texting, showing up at my work unannounced. I explained it away as him being invested in our relationship. The yelling started around month 6. The first time he shoved me was at 8 months, pushed me into a wall during an argument, then cried and apologized, blamed his abusive father, said he needed me to be better. I stayed because he promised to change, because I believed I'd somehow provoked it, because my mother had spent my whole life telling me I was too sensitive and too much. It happened again, and again, each time followed by tears and promises. He claimed to be in therapy, used therapeutic language to explain why his anger was actually my fault. I stayed for 18 months total. 18 months of walking on eggshells, of isolated friendships, of believing I was the problem. My mother's response when I tried to talk to her about it? "You've always been dramatic. Relationships require work." The final breakup happened after he threw my phone against a wall and it shattered. I'd been texting a male coworker about a project deadline and Tyler was convinced I was cheating. When he couldn't find evidence, he got angrier. Watching the pieces of my phone scatter across the floor, I realized that could be my face next time. I left the next day while he was at work, drove to my best friend's apartment, and finally admitted how bad it had been. I filed for a restraining order. Tyler hired a lawyer who painted me as vindictive, but I had documentation. Police reports, witness statements, texts from him violating boundaries. The judge granted a 2-year order. For 6 months after, Tyler tested the limits, driving past my building, showing up places he knew I'd be, sending messages through mutual acquaintances. Then he finally stopped. I changed my number, moved apartments, rebuilt my life. My mother's response? Well, you did have a tendency to provoke him. You've always been stubborn. She told me I was being dramatic about the restraining order, rolled her eyes when I mentioned therapy for PTSD. She never once asked if I was okay. She did tell several family members I'd been in an unfortunate situation, but was fine now, and could we not discuss it because it made her uncomfortable. That was 4 years ago. I'd done the work. I'd healed, mostly. I'd met my current partner through friends at a barbecue, and he was everything Tyler wasn't. Patient, calm, respectful of boundaries, genuinely interested in who I was as a person. He'd never once raised his voice at me in anger. He did dishes without being asked. He remembered things I mentioned in passing. He made me feel safe in ways I hadn't known I needed. The pregnancy was bringing up all this old stuff, though. Not about Tyler. I'd successfully blocked him everywhere and hadn't heard from him in over 3 years. But about my mother. I kept thinking about what kind of grandmother she'd be. I kept imagining her making comments about my parenting choices, about the baby's appearance, about how I was doing everything wrong. I was already anxious enough about becoming a mother without adding her dysfunction to the mix. Maybe we just don't tell her much, my partner suggested one night when I was spiraling about it. Like, minimal information. She doesn't need to know our daily business. You don't understand, I said. She'll find out anyway. She always does. And then she'll punish me for keeping her in the dark. Punish you how? You're an adult with your own life. By calling family members and telling them I'm excluding her. By showing up unannounced. By making everything about how I'm a terrible daughter. You haven't seen the full force of her when she feels slighted. He looked genuinely concerned. That's not normal, you know that, right? I know. Therapy, remember? I know it's not normal. Doesn't make it easier to deal with. The first trimester was rough. Morning sickness that lasted all day, exhaustion that made me feel like I was moving through water, food aversions to everything I normally loved. I couldn't keep down anything except saltine crackers and ginger ale for the first 6 weeks. My partner was amazing, bringing me crackers in bed, taking over dinner completely, not complaining when I fell asleep at 8 p.m. every night. He'd come home from work to find me on the couch in the same position I'd been in when he left that morning, and he'd just kiss my forehead and ask what I needed. I'd planned to wait until the second trimester to tell people, but I ended up telling my best friend at 7 weeks because I needed someone to vent to about how terrible I felt. We met for lunch at a place near my work, though I could only manage to nibble on plain bread while she ate. Have you told your mom yet? She asked. Called her the day I found out. She was about as enthusiastic as you'd expect. Has she checked in since? I pulled up my texts with my mother. The last message was from me, sent a week ago, asking how she was doing. She'd responded with fine and nothing else. Before that was another message from me, 3 days earlier, saying I'd been really sick with morning sickness. She'd seen it. The little red receipt showed she'd opened it, but never responded. No, haven't heard from her. She knows you're sick and hasn't even asked how you're feeling. That would require her to think about someone other than herself for 5 minutes. My friend reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I'm sorry. You'd think your first grandchild would be exciting. You'd think a lot of things about having a mother would be different than they are. The silence from my mother continued through weeks 8, 9, and 10. I stopped reaching out, stopped trying to engage, stopped hoping she'd suddenly become the mother I needed. My partner's mother, on the other hand, called every few days to check on me. She'd ask about specific symptoms, share stories from her own pregnancies, offer advice without being pushy. The contrast was so stark it was almost painful. My mother-in-law asked if I'd been able to keep anything down today. I told my partner one night. She remembered from our conversation 3 days ago that plain toast was working. She actually remembered a detail about my life. That's what caring looks like, he said gently. I know, it's just weird. I'm 28 years old and I'm still surprised when someone acts like they care about me. Your mother really did a number on you. Therapy, I said, because that was always my answer when he pointed out the lasting damage. I'm working on it in therapy. At 10 weeks, I had my first prenatal appointment. Everything looked good. Strong heartbeat, measuring right on track. They gave me a due date in early March, handed me a folder full of information about what to expect, sent me to the lab for blood work. I felt this weird mixture of excitement and terror. This was real. This was happening. There was a tiny human growing inside me who would eventually be a whole person I'd be responsible for. I took a photo of the ultrasound print and sent it to my mother. Just the photo, no message. She responded 6 hours later. Nice. That's it. One word. My partner's mother, when we told her the following weekend, literally screamed with joy and immediately started planning a baby shower. She pulled out her phone and started showing us photos of my partner as a baby. Got teary talking about becoming a grandmother. Asked a million questions about how I was feeling and whether we needed anything. The contrast was stark enough that I actually started crying, which I blamed on hormones, but was really about grief. Grief for the mother I didn't have, for the relationship that would never exist, for this fantasy grandmother who would be excited and supportive and actually care. Your mother-in-law is lovely, my mother said when I mentioned the visit during our next phone call, and her tone made it an accusation somehow. Must be nice having such an involved family. You could be involved too, I said, even though I knew it was pointless. I asked how you were doing. What else do you want from me? Maybe some enthusiasm? Maybe acting like you're happy about becoming a grandmother? I just think you're rushing into things. You barely know this man. 2 years isn't barely knowing someone. You got married after 6 months. That was different. Your father and I were more mature. I let it go because fighting with her was exhausting and never led anywhere productive. She'd just twist everything around until I was somehow the problem, until I was apologizing for having expectations of her at all. The second trimester brought relief from the nausea, and a visible bump that made everything feel more real. I started wearing maternity clothes, feeling the baby move for the first time around 16 weeks. These little flutters that could have been gas but probably weren't. My partner talked to my belly every night, telling the baby about his day, playing music, reading from books even though the baby couldn't hear yet. It was dorky and sweet, and made me love him even more. We decided to find out the sex at the 20-week anatomy scan. A girl. We were having a daughter. The technician printed out extra photos, pointing out tiny fingers and toes, the curve of her spine, her perfect little face and profile. We left the appointment giddy, stopped for lunch, spent an hour looking at baby names on our phones and laughing at the ridiculous ones. I sent the anatomy scan photos to my mother with a message. It's a girl. She called me an hour later. So you're finding out the sex? I thought people like to be surprised these days. Some people do. We wanted to know. Have you picked a name yet? We're narrowing it down. We'll probably decide in a few months. Well, don't choose anything too unusual. Children get bullied for strange names. We're not naming her anything strange, Mom. I'm just saying, you should think about her future, not just what sounds cute. The conversation lasted maybe 5 minutes before she said she had to go. No congratulations, no excitement about having a granddaughter, no asking to see more photos. Just criticism disguised as concern and then a quick exit. I felt that familiar hollowness that came after talking to her, like she'd somehow taken something from me without me noticing. My partner found me sitting on the couch staring at nothing. Your mom? I nodded. What did she say? That we shouldn't name her anything weird. That was the extent of her commentary on finding out we're having a daughter. He sat down next to me, pulled me against his side. I'm sorry. You deserve better than that. I know. Doesn't make it hurt less. Do you want to limit her involvement? Like, when the baby comes, we don't have to tell her immediately. We can take time for ourselves. That would be amazing. But she'd lose her mind if she found out we told other people first. She'd make it this whole thing about how I'm excluding her and she's such a victim. She's going to make everything a thing anyway. Might as well protect our peace. He was right. I knew he was right. But years of conditioning made it hard to actually implement boundaries with her. The guilt was automatic, bone deep, irrational, but powerful. The weeks passed in this strange rhythm. Work became harder as I got bigger. Standing for long periods hurt my back. Sitting for too long made my feet swell. My energy levels were unpredictable. My boss was understanding, let me work from home more often, adjusted my schedule when I needed it. My coworkers threw me a surprise mini shower one afternoon, complete with a cake and tiny gifts wrapped in pink paper. Their enthusiasm and kindness made me tear up, which they blamed on pregnancy hormones, but was really about being seen and celebrated by people who barely knew me, while my own mother couldn't be bothered. My partner's family started giving us their baby gear, his sister's old crib, his cousin's barely used stroller, boxes of tiny clothes that their kids had outgrown. His mother spent a weekend helping us set up the nursery, painting the walls a soft yellow, arranging furniture, hanging curtains. She told me stories about my partner as a baby, showed me photos of him at various stages of childhood, shared advice without being pushy about it. "I'm really glad you're part of our family," she said at one point while we were folding tiny onesies. "Thank you," I managed, getting teary again. "No, I mean it. He's happy with you. We can see it. And this baby is so lucky to have you as her mom." I excused myself to cry in the bathroom because that's apparently what happens when you get genuine maternal affection after a lifetime of not having it. When I came back, she pretended not to notice my red eyes and just kept folding baby clothes like nothing had happened, giving me space to collect myself. My best friend started coming over every Sunday for what she called baby prep sessions, but was really just an excuse to hang out. We'd go through all the stuff people had given us, read baby books together, practiced swaddling techniques on a stuffed animal. She was excited about becoming a godmother, had already started buying gifts even though I'd told her to wait until after the baby was born. "I can't help it," she said, showing me yet another tiny outfit. "Look at this. It has ducks on it. Ducks. You're going to spoil her. That's literally my job as godmother. Spoiling her is in the contract." These were the moments that made the pregnancy feel real in a good way, surrounded by people who were genuinely excited, who wanted to be involved, who treated this baby like the blessing she was. It made the absence of my mother more obvious but also less painful, because I could see now what family was supposed to look like. It wasn't about obligation or guilt or managing someone else's emotions. It was about showing up because you wanted to, about celebrating without making it about yourself, about supporting without conditions attached. I hit the 24-week mark in mid-November. Thanksgiving was coming up, and we'd tentatively planned to spend it with my partner's family since they lived closer, and his mother had already been planning the menu for weeks, asking about my food aversions and making sure there would be things I could eat. My mother called 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, her voice clipped and expectant. "I assume you're coming here for Thanksgiving," she said without preamble. We were planning to go to his parents' house. They're only an hour away, and they've been planning, "I'm your mother. You should be spending the holiday with me. You're welcome to come to their house. They'd love to have you. I'm not going to someone else's house for Thanksgiving. That's ridiculous. You should come here. Mom, we already told them we'd be there. Maybe we can do dinner with you the weekend after." So I'm second priority now. Good to know where I stand. That's not what I said. We're trying to split holidays. We can't be two places at once. You used to always come here for Thanksgiving. But I guess now that you have a new family, I don't matter anymore. The guilt trip was so blatant it was almost funny, except it was working. I felt myself caving, felt the familiar anxiety rising, felt the automatic response of, "I'm sorry, you're right. I'll fix this," starting to form. Then my partner gently took the phone from me. "Hi," he said into the phone. "We'd love to have you join us at my parents' house for Thanksgiving if you'd like. If not, we can definitely schedule another time to see you. But we're spending the holiday with my family this year." He paused, listening. "Okay. Well, the invitation stands if you change your mind. Have a good day." He hung up. I stared at him. Did you just hang up on my mother? She hung up on me? Technically. Started yelling about respect and how dare I. And I just said we'd talk later and ended the call. He handed me back my phone. "You don't have to let her bully you into things. No is a complete sentence. She's going to make this a whole thing. Let her. We're not changing our plans because she's throwing a fit." The relief I felt was enormous and guilt-inducing at the same time. Part of me wanted to call her back and apologize, to smooth things over, to make her happy. But a larger part of me was tired. So tired of managing her emotions, of sacrificing my own needs to keep her satisfied, of always being the one to compromise. She didn't call back. She did, however, post on social media about how hard it was to be a mother when your children abandoned you during the holidays. Several relatives commented asking what happened, and she played the victim beautifully. She didn't mention that she'd been invited to join us, didn't mention that we'd offered an alternative time to see her, just painted herself as the lonely, forgotten mother whose ungrateful daughter had cast her aside. My aunt called me the next day. "Your mother says you're not coming for Thanksgiving? We're going to my partner's family this year. We invited her to come with us, but she declined. She's really hurt. You know, she's been talking about having you for Thanksgiving for weeks. She never mentioned it to me until 2 weeks ago. And I'm 6 months pregnant. I can't be traveling all over trying to please everyone. I'm just saying she's your mother. You only get one mother." I wanted to scream. The whole, You only get one mother thing was exactly the kind of manipulation that had kept me trapped in guilt for years. I'm aware she's my mother, I said as calmly as I could, and she's welcome to be part of our lives. But I'm not going to cancel plans we've already made because she decided at the last minute she wanted us there. My aunt made a disapproving sound. You've changed since you've been with him. You used to be such a sweet girl. Translation: I used to be easier to control. I used to cave immediately when pressured. I used to put my mother's needs above my own every single time. Thanksgiving actually ended up being lovely. My partner's family was warm and welcoming. His mother fussed over me in a way that felt caring rather than smothering, and nobody made passive-aggressive comments about anything. We ate too much, watched football, played board games, and I felt the baby kicking the whole time like she was joining in the fun. It was what family gatherings were supposed to feel like. My mother texted me at 9 p.m. on Thanksgiving. Hope you enjoyed yourself. I ate alone. I stared at the message for a long time. My partner read it over my shoulder and said, "Don't respond. She's baiting you. She spent Thanksgiving alone. I feel terrible. She chose to spend it alone. She could have come with us. She could have made plans with friends or other family. She's trying to make you feel guilty for a choice she made." He was right. But knowing that didn't stop the guilt from gnawing at me. I put my phone away without responding. She sent 3 more messages over the next hour, each one escalating in martyrdom. "I'm sure you're too busy to respond. Must be nice having a new family that actually wants you around." I guess I know where I stand now. I turned off my phone and went to bed. The next day brought a voicemail from my mother. I listened to it on speaker with my partner present, which had become my policy for dealing with her. Having a witness helped me reality check whether her behavior was as unreasonable as it felt, or if I was being oversensitive like she always claimed. "Hi, it's your mother. I haven't heard from you since yesterday. I'm assuming you're too busy with your new family to check on me. I just wanted you to know that I spent yesterday completely alone because you couldn't be bothered to include me in your plans. But I'm sure you don't care about that. You've made it very clear that I'm not important to you anymore. I hope you're happy with your choices." The voicemail ended. My partner and I looked at each other. "That's manipulative as hell," he said. "I know. Are you going to call her back?" I don't know what to say. Nothing I say will be right. Then don't say anything. She's trying to provoke a reaction. I knew he was right. I drafted and deleted about 10 responses before finally sending, "I'm sorry you chose to spend Thanksgiving alone. The invitation to join us was genuine. I hope you have a good weekend." She read it immediately. The 3 dots appeared like she was typing a response, then disappeared. Appeared again. Disappeared. No response came. The silent treatment. She'd do this for days, or sometimes weeks, waiting for me to crack and reach out apologizing profusely for whatever I'd done wrong. Except this time I didn't crack. Days went by. A week. 2 weeks. I was entering my 3rd trimester, dealing with heartburn and swollen feet, and I just didn't have the energy to manage my mother's emotions on top of everything else. My partner's mother started planning a baby shower for January, sending me Pinterest boards and asking about color schemes and themes. My best friend was helping coordinate, making sure my actual friends would be invited and not just my partner's relatives. It was exciting and overwhelming and made the baby feel so much more real. We were going to be parents in less than 3 months. I didn't tell my mother about the baby shower. I knew I should probably invite her, but I also knew she'd find a way to make the whole day about her, to create some drama or make passive-aggressive comments that would ruin it for everyone. My best friend asked if I wanted her there. "No," I said. "Is that terrible? It's your shower. You get to decide who comes. She's going to lose her mind when she finds out. Let her. She had her chance to be involved and chose to give you the silent treatment instead." The shower was scheduled for mid-January, when I'd be 32 weeks. We'd sent out invitations in early December. I spent the next few weeks in this weird limbo, my mother still not speaking to me, me not reaching out to her, both of us apparently waiting for the other to blink first. Part of me felt relieved. The silence meant no criticism, no demands, no guilt trips, but part of me felt sad, grieving the mother-daughter relationship I'd never have. I was 29 weeks when my phone rang at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. Tyler's name showed up on the caller ID. Tyler, who I hadn't spoken to in over 3 years. Tyler, who I had blocked on everything. Tyler, who shouldn't have my current number because I'd changed it specifically to get away from him. My blood went cold. I showed my partner the phone. "Don't answer," he said immediately. "How does he have my number? I changed it. He shouldn't." The call went to voicemail. My phone immediately rang again. Same number. I declined it. It rang again. "I'm calling the police," my partner said, already reaching for his phone. And tell them what? That my ex is calling me? That your ex, who you have a restraining order against, is calling you. The restraining order expired 2 years ago. We didn't renew it because he'd left me alone. The calls kept coming. 5 times, 6 times, 7. Then they stopped. A text came through instead. We need to talk about the baby. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. My partner read the text over my shoulder and his face went white. How does he know you're pregnant? He asked. I don't know. I haven't posted anything on social media. We've been so careful. Another text. Your mother told me. I have a right to know about my child. The room spun. I had to sit down. My partner was pacing, already on his phone with the police, but I couldn't focus on what he was saying. My mother. My mother had told Tyler. My mother, who I'd barely spoken to in weeks, who knew about Tyler, who knew what he'd put me through, had somehow found Tyler and told him I was pregnant. Another text. I know I messed up before, but this changes everything. I deserve a chance to be a father. And another. We can co-parent. I've changed. I've been in therapy. And another. Why are you ignoring me? This is important. My partner got off the phone with the police, his expression grim but determined. They're sending someone over. They want to see the messages. Do not respond to him. Don't engage at all. He thinks the baby is his, I said, and my voice sounded far away. He thinks... Why would my mother tell him that? I don't know, but we're going to find out. The police arrived 20 minutes later. 2 officers, a man and a woman, both with the weary professionalism of people who'd seen too much. They took my statement and looked at the messages, scrolling through Tyler's increasingly unhinged texts with expressions that shifted from concern to alarm. They explained that since the restraining order had expired, Tyler hadn't technically done anything illegal by contacting me, but the harassment angle might give us grounds for a new order. They took copies of everything, gave us a case number, told us to document any further contact and not respond to him directly. After they left, I sat on the couch in shock. My partner was next to me, holding my hand, but I felt completely disconnected from my body. My mother had done this. My mother, who I'd told explicitly about Tyler, about the abuse, about how traumatizing that relationship had been, had somehow tracked him down and told him I was pregnant. Had apparently told him the baby might be his. Which was insane because I hadn't even known Tyler in over 3 years. I need to call her, I said. Maybe wait until tomorrow when you're calmer. No. I need to know what she did. I need to know why. I called her number. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. On the 3rd attempt, she answered. It's late, she said. What do you want? Did you contact Tyler? My voice was shaking. Who? Don't play games with me. Tyler, my ex. Did you tell him I'm pregnant? There was a pause. I might have reached out to him. I thought he deserved to know. Deserved to know what? That I'm pregnant with someone else's baby? What possible reason would you have for contacting a man who abused me? He didn't abuse you. You were in a difficult relationship and you both made mistakes. He shoved me into walls. He threw things at me. I had a restraining order. You were always so dramatic about everything. He called me a few months ago asking how you were doing, and I thought it would be wrong not to tell him about the baby. My brain was short-circuiting. He called you? When? Why? I don't know. Maybe 2 months ago? He found me on social media and messaged me. He seemed very concerned about you. He said you'd blocked him and he just wanted to make sure you were okay. And you thought the appropriate response was to tell him I'm pregnant? Well, if there's any chance the baby is his, there's no chance. None. I haven't seen him in over 3 years. You know that. You know exactly how long it's been because you were there when I left him. You don't have to be so hostile. I was trying to do the right thing. The right thing? Mom, he's been calling me all night. He's harassing me. I just had to call the police. Oh, don't be dramatic. He just wants to be involved if it's his baby. It's not his baby! I was shouting now, and my partner was looking at me with concern. It's not his baby, and you know it's not his baby, and you told him anyway. Why would you do that? Maybe because you've been ignoring me for weeks? Maybe because you excluded me from Thanksgiving, and apparently you're having a baby shower you didn't bother to invite me to? Maybe because you've made it very clear that I don't matter to you anymore? And there it was. The real reason. She was punishing me for setting boundaries, for choosing my own family, for not centering her in my life. She'd weaponized my trauma, contacted the man who'd traumatized me, fed him lies about my baby, all because I hadn't given her enough attention. You're punishing me, I said quietly. You contacted my abusive ex and lied to him about my baby to punish me for not catering to you. I didn't lie about anything. And he's not abusive, you're just holding grudges. I'm done, I said. Don't contact me again. Don't come to the hospital when the baby's born. Don't call, don't text, don't show up at my house. We're done. You don't mean that. You're emotional because you're pregnant. I hung up. Then I blocked her number. Then I blocked her on every social media platform I could think of. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. My partner pulled me against his chest, and I broke down sobbing. Not gentle crying, but the kind of sobbing that hurts. That comes from somewhere deep and ragged, that feels like it might never stop. He held me through it, not saying anything because what was there to say? My mother had betrayed me in the worst possible way. She'd taken my trauma and used it as a weapon because I dared to have boundaries. The texts from Tyler continued through the night. We documented all of them but didn't respond. He was getting increasingly aggressive, demanding answers, threatening to take legal action, insisting he had rights. Around 3 a.m., they finally stopped. I didn't sleep at all. I just lay there in the dark, feeling the baby move inside me, wondering how I was supposed to protect her from a world that included both Tyler and my mother. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Tyler's face from years ago, the rage in his eyes when he'd shove me, the tears afterward when he'd apologize, the dead, calm expression he'd get sometimes that was scarier than the yelling. And now he thought I was pregnant with his child. Now he had this delusional narrative in his head, fed by my own mother, that gave him justification to insert himself back into my life. My mother had weaponized my trauma, and I couldn't understand why. What had I done that was so terrible it deserved this? Not given her enough attention? Set some boundaries? Chosen my own family over her dysfunction? My partner stayed up with me, one hand on my belly feeling the baby kick, the other scrolling through Tyler's messages documenting everything. Around 4 a.m., he put his phone down and looked at me. "We're going to get through this," he said. "You don't know that." I do know that. Because I'm not leaving and you're not alone in this. And we have resources and support. This isn't like before when you were isolated and didn't know how to fight back. We know what to do now. He was right, but it didn't stop the fear. The fear was primal, bone deep, a survival instinct that had been honed through 18 months of walking on eggshells around Tyler. My body remembered even when my brain tried to rationalize that things were different now. The lawyer my partner found the next morning specialized in family law and restraining orders. She listened to everything, reviewed the messages, asked detailed questions about my history with Tyler. Her office was in a nice building downtown, all glass and natural light, and she had a calm, competent energy that made me feel like maybe we could actually handle this. "The good news is that you have grounds for a restraining order based on the harassment," she said, reviewing the messages on her tablet with practiced efficiency. "The bad news is that if he actually believes this child might be his, we need to be prepared for him to potentially file for paternity testing. The baby isn't his." "There's no way. I haven't seen him in over 3 years." "I believe you, but he doesn't know that. Or he's choosing not to believe it. Your mother's involvement complicated things by feeding him this narrative. Can we do anything about my mother? She lied to him. She's the reason this is happening." The lawyer tapped her pen against her notepad, thinking. "Unfortunately, there's no law against telling someone about a pregnancy, even if it's malicious. But we can include her in the restraining order if she's been harassing you or if you believe she's coordinating with Tyler. And based on what you've told me, it sounds like she might be." My partner pulled up his laptop. "I found something last night that you should see." He showed her the screenshots. Messages between Tyler and my mother, forum posts where Tyler was sharing their conversations, evidence of weeks of coordination between them. The lawyer's expression hardened as she read through everything. "This changes things," she said. "This isn't just someone sharing information. This is active facilitation of harassment. She's not just telling him you're pregnant. She's nurturing his delusions, encouraging his belief that he has rights, providing him with information to stalk you. We can absolutely include her in the restraining order with this evidence." "Won't she deny it?" I asked. "She might. But these screenshots came from Tyler's own posts. He's publicly documenting their collaboration. That's evidence that doesn't rely on anyone's word. It's his own admission." We spent the next 2 hours going through everything, building a timeline, documenting every instance of contact between Tyler and my mother, every piece of information she'd shared, every encouraging message she'd sent him. The lawyer took notes, asked clarifying questions, assembled a case that felt solid and terrifying at the same time. Solid because we had evidence. Terrifying because I was going to court to get a restraining order against my own mother. I know this is hard, the lawyer said when we finished. Taking legal action against a parent is incredibly difficult, even when that parent has hurt you. But I want you to understand something. Your mother didn't make a mistake. She made a choice. Multiple choices, over multiple weeks, to collaborate with someone who traumatized you. She could have stopped at any point. She could have refused to engage with him. She could have told you what he was doing. Instead, she actively participated in putting you and your unborn child at risk. That's not someone who deserves access to your life. I nodded, unable to speak around the lump in my throat. My partner squeezed my hand. I don't want to include my mother in a restraining order. My partner looked at me like I'd lost my mind. She sicked your abusive ex on you. While you're pregnant. The lawyer waited, then spoke gently. You don't have to decide right now. We can file against Tyler immediately and add your mother later if needed. But what she did wasn't a mistake. It was calculated. We filed for an emergency restraining order against Tyler that afternoon. The judge granted it temporarily, scheduling a full hearing for 2 weeks later. Tyler was served at his apartment that evening. Tyler violated the order within 24 hours. Showed up at my workplace, told the receptionist he was the father of my baby and demanded to see me. The receptionist, thank God, was someone who'd been with the company for years and knew me well. She took one look at Tyler, agitated, insistent, radiating barely contained aggression, and didn't even pretend to believe him. I'll need to see some ID, she said calmly, already reaching for the phone under her desk. I don't need to show you ID. I'm her partner. I need to see her. It's urgent. Sir, her partner is already on file with our security. You're not him. I'm going to need you to leave the building. You don't understand. She's pregnant with my child. I have rights. I need to see her. The receptionist pressed the button under her desk that summoned security. Sir, I'm asking you to leave now. If you don't leave voluntarily, security will escort you out. That's when Tyler's composure cracked. He started yelling about his rights, about discrimination, about how the system was designed to keep fathers from their children. Security arrived while he was mid-rant. 2 large men who positioned themselves on either side of him and firmly but calmly told him he needed to leave immediately. Tyler tried to push past them, tried to make a run for the elevators that would take him to my floor. They stopped him, not violently but effectively, and he started struggling. That's when they called the police. By the time officers arrived 10 minutes later, Tyler was sitting on the lobby floor, still yelling, drawing a crowd of curious office workers heading out for lunch. My boss called me at home to tell me what had happened. I was on leave already because of the pregnancy complications from stress, but she wanted me to know the building was secure and that Tyler had been removed. Everyone here knows you, she said. We all saw what he was doing. You have an entire office full of witnesses who will testify if you need them. This man isn't getting anywhere near you. The kindness in her voice broke something open in me. I sobbed on the phone while she made comforting sounds and told me to take all the time I needed. When I hung up, my partner was standing there with a glass of water and my prenatal vitamins because he'd noticed I'd forgotten to take them that morning. He set them on the coffee table and sat next to me. They arrested him, I said. Good. He showed up at my work. He tried to get to me. My whole office saw him lose it. And he failed. Security stopped him. Police arrested him. He's in custody. The system worked this time. What about next time? What happens when he gets out? The judge is going to revoke his bail pending the full hearing. Multiple restraining order violations, stalking behavior. This establishes a pattern. He's not getting out anytime soon. He was right. The judge revoked bail that afternoon. Tyler was remanded to custody, held in county jail until the hearing. I should have felt relief, but mostly I felt numb. This was my life now. My ex-boyfriend was in jail because my mother had set him on me like a weapon. I was 6 months pregnant and living in fear. The baby shower invitations had gone out and I was second-guessing every person on the list, wondering who might leak information, who might still be in contact with my mother, who could be trusted. My mother's response was more insidious. She didn't violate any laws by contacting me directly, but she started calling family members. My phone started ringing with concerned relatives asking what was going on. Why was Tyler in jail? Why was I pressing charges? Didn't I think I was overreacting? Each conversation required me to explain the history, to defend myself, to relive trauma I'd spent years trying to heal from. My aunt called me crying. Your mother is devastated. She just wanted you to know about the baby's father. She didn't know Tyler would react this way. Tyler is not the father. She knew Tyler was abusive. She contacted him deliberately to hurt me. That's not true. She's just concerned about you. She thinks this new boyfriend has isolated you from your family. I isolated myself from my family because my family didn't believe me when I said Tyler was abusive. Because my mother told me I provoked him. Because nobody protected me when I needed protection. We didn't know it was that bad. Because nobody asked. Nobody wanted to know. It was easier to believe I was being dramatic. My aunt was quiet for a moment. I don't know what you want me to say. I don't want you to say anything. I want you to stop calling me on behalf of my mother. I want the family to respect that I'm protecting myself and my baby. I want people to believe me for once. She hung up. 2 days later, 3 more relatives called with similar messages. My mother was spinning a narrative where she was the victim, the concerned grandmother being kept from her grandchild by a vindictive daughter. Nobody asked for my side. Nobody questioned her version. They just called to tell me I was being cruel, I was holding grudges, I should forgive my mother because family was important. My best friend finally had enough. She posted in our extended family group chat, a chat I'd muted months ago but she was still in, with screenshots of Tyler's messages timestamped from the night he'd made contact. Above the screenshots she wrote, "This is why she filed a restraining order. Her mother gave her abusive ex her contact information and lied about the baby's paternity, putting both her and her unborn child at risk. Anyone who has a problem with her protecting herself can deal with me directly." The family group chat went silent after that. A few cousins sent me private apologies. Most people didn't say anything. My aunt sent a message saying we were airing family business inappropriately, and this should have been handled privately. My best friend responded with a middle finger emoji and left the group chat. I loved her for that. I loved that she was willing to burn bridges on my behalf when I was too exhausted to defend myself. But the damage was done. My mother had successfully divided the family into camps, those who believed me and those who believed her. And because she'd been playing the victim role for decades, she had more people on her side. My cousins stopped inviting me to things. My grandmother, who I'd always been close with, started making comments about how I should forgive and move on. Only my brother and a handful of cousins actually reached out to offer support. The rest either stayed silent or actively sided with my mother. The isolation hurt more than I expected. I'd already lost most of my friends during the relationship with Tyler. Now I was losing extended family too. My support system was shrinking to my partner, his family, my best friend, and my brother. It was enough. More than enough, really, because these were people who actually cared about me. But it still hurt to realize how many people were willing to believe my mother's lies without questioning them. The baby shower happened as planned in mid-January. I was 32 weeks, uncomfortable but happy. My partner's family was there. My actual friends were there. Co-workers who'd become friends were there. Nobody mentioned my mother. Nobody asked about Tyler. It was just people who loved me celebrating this baby, showering us with gifts and advice and good wishes. I cried happy tears for the first time in weeks. That night, my mother posted on social media about how painful it was to be excluded from her own grandchild's baby shower, about how she'd apparently failed as a mother because her daughter wanted nothing to do with her. The post got dozens of sympathetic comments from people who didn't know the real story. My partner asked if I wanted him to respond, to tell people what she'd actually done. No, I said. Let her have her victim narrative. The people who matter know the truth. The restraining order hearing happened at 34 weeks pregnant. I had to testify about Tyler, about our history, about the abuse. Tyler was there in an orange jumpsuit, shackled, staring at me the entire time with this expression that I couldn't read. His lawyer tried to paint him as a concerned potential father who just wanted involvement in his child's life. My lawyer destroyed that argument with evidence of the previous restraining order, police reports from when we'd been together, and testimony from my therapist about the PTSD I'd developed from the relationship. The judge granted the restraining order for 3 years. Tyler was ordered to have no contact with me, my partner, or the baby once born. The judge also added a note that any attempt to establish paternity would need to go through the courts and could only happen with DNA evidence, proving he had grounds to even request testing. My mother's hearing was separate, scheduled for the following week. She showed up with a lawyer, looking like a victim herself, dressed simply, no makeup, tissues in hand. Her lawyer painted her as a concerned mother who'd made a poor decision out of worry for her daughter. My lawyer presented evidence of the pattern of manipulation, including testimony from my therapist and documentation of her history of narcissistic behavior. The judge granted a 1-year restraining order. My mother's lawyer tried to argue for an exception for when the baby was born, saying it was cruel to keep a grandmother from her grandchild. The judge said the order stood and that any visitation rights would need to be negotiated through family court after the year was up. I saw my mother's face when the ruling came down. For just a second, the mask slipped, and I saw pure rage. Then it was gone, replaced by tears and devastation. She dabbed at her eyes with a tissue and let her lawyer lead her out of the courtroom. "That look," my partner said quietly as we left. "Did you see that?" "Yeah. That's not someone who's sorry. That's someone who's angry they got caught." He was right. My mother wasn't sorry for what she'd done. She was angry that there were consequences. The final weeks of pregnancy were surreal. I was huge and uncomfortable, unable to sleep, constantly worried about labor and delivery and whether I'd be a good mother. But there was also relief. Tyler was in jail awaiting trial for violating the restraining order. My mother was legally required to stay away. I could focus on preparing for the baby without worrying about either of them showing up. My obstetrician worked with hospital administration to create an unprecedented security protocol for my delivery. I would be admitted under a false name. Only my immediate family would be given room information, and they'd need special badges to access the maternity ward. Extra security guards would be posted. All hospital staff working with me would be briefed on the situation and shown photos of both Tyler and my mother, with instructions to call security immediately if either was spotted anywhere in the facility. Labor started on a Tuesday morning, 3 days before my due date. My water broke at home while I was making breakfast. We grabbed the hospital bag we'd had packed for weeks and drove to the hospital, my partner gripping the steering wheel with white knuckles, me trying to breathe through contractions that were already pretty intense. The labor lasted 18 hours. 18 hours of pain and exhaustion, and my partner holding my hand and reminding me to breathe. The delivery room was just us and the medical staff, no family in the waiting room, no visitors, just the two of us becoming 3. "You're doing great," the nurse kept saying as contractions came harder and closer together. "You're almost there." But I wasn't almost there. Hours dragged by. The pain became all-consuming. My partner fed me ice chips and wiped my forehead with a cool cloth. He told me I was strong, that I could do this, that our daughter was almost here. I wanted to believe him. Around hour 15, they offered an epidural. I'd had this whole plan about doing it without pain medication, about being present for every moment, about experiencing childbirth in its raw, natural form. That plan went out the window. I said yes before they finished explaining the procedure. The relief was immediate and overwhelming. I could finally breathe without gasping through pain. I could think clearly enough to have a conversation. My partner sat next to me, holding my hand, and we talked about baby names we were still debating, about what she might look like, about how our lives were about to change completely. "I'm scared," I admitted. "Me too. What if I'm a terrible mother? What if I end up like her?" "You won't," he said firmly. "You already know what not to do. You've spent years in therapy learning how to be different. And I'm here. We're doing this together." When they finally placed her on my chest, this tiny, perfect human covered in vernix and screaming her head off, I felt something shift in my chest that I didn't have words for. She was real. She was here. She was mine to protect. "She's perfect," my partner kept saying, tears running down his face. "You did it. She's perfect." We named her after my partner's grandmother, a woman who'd apparently been kind and loving and everything a grandmother should be. I thought briefly about my own mother, about how she'd never meet this baby, about the relationship that would never exist. Then I looked at my daughter and thought maybe that was for the best. Maybe protecting her from toxic people was the greatest gift I could give her. We stayed in the hospital for 2 days. Nobody showed up trying to see the baby. We'd been careful not to share what hospital we were at, had registered under a private status so no one could find us in the system. My partner's family visited one at a time, keeping it low-key, respecting our space. My best friend came and held the baby while I showered and cried from the hormones and exhaustion. It felt safe. Going home was terrifying. What if my mother showed up? What if Tyler had somehow gotten out? My partner checked every room before bringing the baby inside, checked all the locks, verified security cameras were working. The first few weeks were a blur of feeding and diapers and no sleep. It was hard and beautiful and exhausting. Tyler ended up taking a plea deal that included 18 months in jail and a 5-year no-contact agreement, with stipulations that he couldn't file for paternity testing without proof of a relationship during the relevant time frame, which he couldn't provide. My mother's restraining order would last a year, but I had no intention of reaching out when it expired. The baby is 6 months old now. She's rolling over, sitting up, babbling. She looks like my partner mostly, but she has my eyes. My partner's parents are involved grandparents, visiting weekly, babysitting when we need breaks. My best friend is her godmother. We have a community of people who love her. Sometimes people ask about my mother, family members who don't know the whole story, new friends making assumptions. I've gotten better at the short version. We're not in contact, or it's complicated. Most people don't push for details. The guilt still hits sometimes. That voice trained into me from childhood saying I'm a bad daughter, too harsh, holding grudges. But I'm working on it. Having my own child helps. It's made me realize how wrong my mother's behavior was. I look at my daughter and I can't imagine treating her the way I was treated. I can't imagine using her trauma against her or putting her in danger to punish her for having boundaries. My partner says I'm a good mother. On hard days when I'm exhausted and questioning everything, I try to believe him. Good parenting isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up, being present, protecting them when you can, and teaching them they deserve respect. It's about breaking cycles instead of perpetuating them. Right now, we're okay. We're more than okay. We have each other, we have our daughter, and we have strong boundaries protecting our family from people who would harm us. Some relationships are too broken to fix. Some people will never see what they did wrong. And that's not my responsibility to fix anymore. This is our life now. Not the one I planned, but the one we're making work anyway, one day at a time.